What's up? It's Mike Mal, and you are listening to the Athletor Podcast, where we dive into the processes, mindsets, strategies of some of the most successful athletes and coaches from all walks of life. Let's go. It's the Athletor Podcast. Trent Hidlay this week. This dude got me so fired up talking about the one text message that was most pivotal in his entire wrestling career, and it came from his brother Hayden. He gets into youth wrestling, the state of the NCAA, and how it's going to affect RTCs. All that and more coming up. Athletor Podcast. Listen, man. Athletor Podcast, Trent Hidlay. I got so much to talk to you about. And I first want to say thank you very much for your time and coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited. It's one of my favorite podcasts, so I'm probably close to watching all of them. But yeah,
Really?
yeah.
All right. So who's your favorite episode? Because honest to goodness, I got a ton of feedback today from when I say strange people, I mean people outside of my sphere, like way outside of my sphere, and even non-wrestling people. So what was your favorite podcast so far?
I like my brothers a lot, obviously. I think that
I
was
do
fun.
too, man.
I like anytime I get to listen to his podcast. Colat, probably, he's one of my favorites. I thought this recent one with Coleman was pretty cool too. But I like them all because you really don't get to you just don't know that much about these guys, right? Like some people you look up to a lot, some people that coached against you, some people that you've wrestled before. It's just kind of cool to I don't know, get to know them a little bit differently. I think it's fun for me. I love wrestling so much. I love being a fan too, so it's cool for me to digest that in a new way.
What I I'm gonna go to Cole at first. What did you learn about the guy during that 85 minutes? Or no, it wasn't that long. I think it was like 55 minutes.
Mhm.
I learned a ton about that dude. He is far more calculated because he always comes across to me as a pretty gruff, shoot from the hip kind of guy, but he is far more calculated than I thought he ever was.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you get dealt some of the hands that he does, I guess it wouldn't be too surprising to come across like that. But I
Sure.
think that I like that episode a lot too, just because one, he's one of my favorite guys. Like I've watched so much stuff of his, but to hear him kind of dive into, I know you've been able to talk a lot about like the current state of, what college wrestling looks like. And just kind of hearing the business side of that now that I'm out of college, like trying to figure out what things are happening and what's going to be successful moving forward. I thought that was just pretty informative for me to kind of learn about that in a different way.
All right, let's stay on that because I do want to talk about what you're doing next, but something tells me that the state of affairs in NCAA sports, not just wrestling, the state of affairs in NCAA sports might factor into your decision making when you start to think about what you're going to do next. So, where do you see how do you feel about the state of affairs in NCAA wrestling?
I'm concerned. I think
Yeah, you should be. You
uh,
definitely should be. That was a trick question, sir.
Yeah, well, it's scary. And I think it's scary because like I got to experience college wrestling. It's my one of my favorite things of all time. Like going through that, being a fan of it, and to kind of feel like it's probably, not going to be around maybe, or it's not going to exist is just kind of scary, especially because like my ultimate goal was for me and my brother to coach and, take a program and do awesome things with it. So it's like, are we gonna even be able to do that? I don't know. I think I think what'll be interesting is kind of seeing how things pivot. Like, obviously, wrestling's not just gonna go away. Like, people are obsessed with it and obsessed with it for a reason. It may be, it may just look different, but I'm interested to kind of see how things pivot and what just like the landscape of it looks like. Because I can't necessarily see myself being out of it, but my goal for such a long time was to be.
Hey, don't go anywhere. It's Mike. We'll get back to the podcast in just a second. We got to pay the bills though. Do you have an athlete that's looking to break into the social media space? We at athletorlive.com have a brand new in-depth tutorial done by none other than Hayden. If you don't know who Hayden is, he's not even a Division I wrestler, yet he's got hundreds of thousands of engaged followers. Learn how to create engaging content, grow your followers, and open up new opportunities in the NIL space. Go to athletorlive.com/Hayden and we'll give you the first module completely free.
Be a college wrestling coach and coach my brother, so it's like, man, I don't know. It's scary, I guess, thinking about what's going to happen.
Well, okay, let's for those people that have been listening and for people that maybe haven't been listening as hard as you and I have, right? Like we have had our ear to the ground on this since it really started going in a direction. I remember last May, right? Last May was like, oh, there are 30 scholarships. Yay! Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a second. Wait a second. Hold on. Where's that money coming from? What are we doing with like, but now it looks like as of this August, okay, we're going to have a 30-person roster cap for every NCAA team. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that NC State has, I don't know, I think 45 or something like that were on roster. Is that about right?
I think it's like 35, around that number.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
5 guys got to go. That's number one. And they're all going to be
Mhm.
walk-ons, that's for sure. But now we're talking about walk-ons. Okay. Well, how many teams make like, so how many institutions make money from walk-ons? Well, now we're talking about a fairly significant number, right? Because not all of them are going to be able to afford none of them are
Sure,
going
yeah.
to be able to afford 30 scholarships. They're just not. There's no way.
Maybe 12,
So
maybe 13.
now maybe. And that's a big old maybe, right? Because like we talk to guys like John Cerritos, and he's like, doesn't really affect me much. We've had to raise all our money for scholarships anyway, right?
Mhm.
But for the teams that whose institution is footing the bill for these scholarships, they're gonna have to make some serious decisions coming real soon. And NC State, or excuse me, Cleveland State seems like it's the first domino to fall. Am I
Yeah.
crazy for saying that?
No, it's gonna be a scary next couple of years, I think. So we'll see, man. We'll see what happens, but I don't know. It's weird. I'm kind of out of college wrestling, but I'm such a big fan of it, and it's like I'm kind of, in my own sphere here, but I'm still affected by it so much. So it's weird.
All right. So what is next for Trent Hidlay, right? Like, is it LA? I mean, what are we looking at in terms of your competition schedule for the next
Yeah,
couple of
yeah,
years?
no, I'm locked in for LA. I think that's the overarching goal right now is to go to 2028 and make that team and win an Olympic gold. And that's about as clear as I've ever been about my goals right now. As far as short term, I'm leaving tomorrow for Zagreb, and I'll be competing in that first ranking series tournament. So it's been great, man. I have Jamil Kelly is a RTC coach, and Zach Esposito is at NC State. So like I've just been, surrounded by those guys recently a lot, and just, figuring out my competition schedule has been fun. I'm not competing nearly as much as I'm used to, which is
Mhm.
which is nice. So I can kind of focus on some skill development and growing as a wrestler. But yeah, Croatia, and then I'm wrestling Nate Jackson on the flow card end of February. Kind of looking into maybe something in March, and then just getting ready for the U.S. Open. U.S. Open is going to be huge this year, so I think that'll be a really pivotal tournament for me.
You know, it's it's not difficult. It's interesting to me because while NCAA athletes are making money now, okay, with NIL and things like that. Right now, we're in a very unique position where after you graduate from college, some of these guys are taking a big old pay cut, right? And I don't know what your NIL situation was at NC State. Something tells me you weren't making $1 million. But
Mhm.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do you how do you go about making ends meet? And look, it's a tale as old as time, right? John Smith tells everyone that'll listen that he survived on $200 a week for or $200 a month or something like that for years leading up to his Olympic gold
Mhm.
medals. Okay, how do you see the financial aspect of the sport as a young man coming right out of college?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of things that play into it. I'll start with kind of NIL in my situation, right? NC State is not a school that has been obviously offering huge amounts of NIL. And I actually think I like the way that they handle it, because NIL has gotten so crazy that these kids are getting paid so much money and they're just not worth it. It's like,
Mhm.
how long can this
That's
continue?
fair.
And it's just gotten crazy. But like in terms of what I believe that the RTC model of having three or four guys at your university is way more valuable for the wrestlers than bringing in two guys and paying them 150 grand. Like that to me,
Mhm.
because like I look back at my situation, I came to NC State in, see, 2018, Gwiz, Mike Mock, Tommy Gant, Timmy McCall, Quentin Godley, Lee Davis, right? We had like five or six guys that were in the Wolfpack RTC, and I just got my ass kicked for like a year and a half straight, right? But I just like
Mhm.
fully immersed myself into the training with those guys, and that's not even to mention like the guys on the team like Hayden or Nick Reenan or the other guys I was training with. But like for me, like that was so I needed that to get better, and it's like there's no amount of money that could have helped me get to the level that I did by training with those guys. So it's
Mhm.
really, it comes down to, I think, like, what are you going to invest in? Are you going to invest in your RTC or are you going to invest in NIL? And the crazy thing is there's a couple schools that can really do both. And,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
that's
but
just
they're the exception. They're the exception, though, Trent.
right.
Right?
Yeah.
We know we're talking about Oklahoma State, Iowa, and Penn State, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And I from what I understand, and I I I know Kale's listening to this, of course, but from what I understand, they're not dishing out a ton of money for NIL at Penn State.
Mhm.
Okay, so but let's talk more about the NC States of the world.
Sure.
Are
Yeah.
you concerned? Are you concerned that a lot of these RTCs are going to go away?
Concerned. I just don't know. I don't know. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see how things pivot if, college wrestling starts to fall down. But the other thing I wanted to say, like,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, I'm just like going back to what I was talking about earlier. The
Hmm.
first part was kind of the NIL. I have been really fortunate with NC State. Like I've been taken care of very well in terms of since I finished the national tournament last year. Like was I making
Hmm.
crazy NIL money? No, I had a couple of deals like Mitch's Tavern restaurant on campus. Like I had a deal with them. A couple of like apps and stuff, social media. So like it was I feel like I kind of got like some of the actual NIL, like what it was maybe meant for in a way of like,
Sure,
you do some deals,
sure.
you help out here, there, you get some money to do things. Um, but like with NC State, so here's the situation. I had a 6 year. It would have been really easy for me to go in the transfer portal and probably make a lot of money. But what does that leave me with after that year, right? I turned my back on 5 years worth of loyalty to fans and being set up for a year and money that half of it's probably getting taxed, like
Hmm.
I don't know how
Hmm.
much money that actually is, as opposed to, I finished through NC State, which I love. Like there was never even I never needed to leave, but I finished through NC State. I have a guaranteed job right now working with the RTC doing what I love, and making good money doing it. So it's like I feel like one, I played my cards right, but two, like NC State had a situation that makes a lot of sense for a guy like me that wants to continue to wrestle and wrestle at a high level.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
In fact, it is why to me, how old are you? 23, 24,
25.
25. It shows a wisdom that is far beyond your 25 years. Okay, so that's good on you for that.
Well, I hope so. I had 6 years of college.
That,
So.
dang it, that was good. It was well placed, Trent Hidlay. That was
Any of my NBA,
well played, sir.
any of my NBA professors are
Uh,
listening. I'm hoping they would be slightly proud.
all right, well, good.
They're
Yeah,
not listening.
so
Get that out of the way.
no, yeah, yes, they are. You know they are. So, but here's what's interesting to me. Okay, I don't know. I don't know that the kids that are coming into college right now are going to have the same opportunities for
Right.
a number of different reasons. But I just don't. I don't see how a lot of these RTCs are going to be able to survive. NC State might be right on the kind of bubble or the cusp. So if this thing turns and pivots, like you said, towards dropping programs, I think there's going to be a far less opportunities for athletes. Now that said, I like the way you put it when you said it's going to look different. It's not going to go away. Wrestling is not going to go away. Do you think that RTCs in somewhat in their current form can survive outside of NCAA institutions?
I do. I think it would take different sources of funding, obviously. But I was even talking with Jamil and Zach this morning, like, a it may well be, a situation like men's gymnastics, right? Obviously an Olympic
Mhm.
sport, not a ton of NCAA teams, but it's still existing, right? People are not going to not chase the goal of Olympic wrestling gold, right? So what does that look like? I don't know if it's I don't know if maybe it shifts to just all clubs, but that I mean the funding has to come from somewhere. So
Right.
I think that's I don't know. It's just too hard to tell, right? Like I think obviously
Yeah.
money is such a big point of it or part of it, and like where it's coming from is important. And there will always be places. It's just how many places and what does that opportunities look like for a large group of young kids coming up. I don't know. I don't know what it looks like at maybe the Division 2, maybe Division 3 levels just become much better because that's where
Hmm.
kids go to compete and more high level coaches take over different programs in those divisions, but it's just hard to tell.
No, I know, and here I am sticking this heavy conversation on you when you were literally just walking into this world, right? Like literally up until 8 months ago, you didn't care, right? I mean, not that you didn't care, but you certainly didn't have to care, right?
Right.
Um, okay, let's let's shift here. Hayden's one of my favorite dudes in the world. And I'm not alone in that. Like that, everyone kind of speaks the world of him. You somehow in the process of competing and having success in this sport, I don't know that you turned from little brother to big brother, literally, first of all, but you also kind of started to outshine a little bit, right? Which he's psyched about. Like and it speaks to how great of a dude he is. But what is it like as a younger brother to start the guy that you always looked up to? Hey man, I can whoop you a little bit now.
Well, it's interesting because for as long as I can, I've looked up to my brother, and I have an older brother as well. Like when you have older brothers, I got two older brothers. You look up to them so much. Like I've been looking up to Hayden for so long that I don't know if I'll ever not consider him on like a higher level than I am, just because
Mm,
I just think so much of him, and I think part of what makes Hayden so good is like he he made a pathway. It opened up so many doors for me that would have been a lot harder for me to get to without him. So it's like, yeah, I've had pretty good success recently these last three few years, but a huge part of that is because of the foundation that he laid and the way that he trained and lived. It's like I got a free blueprint, you know. I know what I got to do. You know, he kind of paved the way on his own. So I think that's something that I respect a lot. And just, you know, I'll always look at him and, you know, think the world of him and you know, I always kind of look at him as being, you know, the bigger, better brother. And I'm continuing to try to push, you know, for us, and that it's, you know, it's kind of like it's a group effort, right? It's me and him together, even though he lives on the other side of the country, like it's a group effort every time I compete.
Yeah, you can tell there's certainly a strong bond there. You mentioned your own skill development. You had some other people in play. Like I love talking about Ian Assel. I truly believe that he's one of the best coaches in the country that people don't necessarily know a ton about. Um, did you ever think of maybe going that route of maybe like youth coaching, right? Because you look at guys like David Taylor, you look at guys like Daniel Cormier, you look at guys like Kyler Sanderson. These are high level NCAA wrestlers, world level athletes that went into youth coaching, maybe because the opportunities at an NCAA level weren't all that attractive, but also because they're really good at it, right?
Mhm.
Like, has that ever, like, with the influence of Ian in your life, has that ever crossed your mind?
It certainly has. I think being able to coach at that level in that age of group, I think you probably get to impact more kids than you ever could at a college level. So I think there's certainly some a huge value there. And it's like if your goal is to impact kids and make them and prepare them for life, what better way to do that than to be able to do it with hundreds and hundreds of kids each year at a pivotal stage in their development. But it's, you know, who knows? It's hard for me to kind of plan, I think, right now for that kind of stuff because I'm so locked in on just training and competing and trying to win a world title that it's like, I don't know, I'll figure it out. You know, I'll figure out what my role will be when I'm done competing. Um, but I have a strong feeling it'll be at some level will be helping other people get better at the sport.
Mm-hmm. I'm just telling you, I've got my hand up for marketing director of Hidlay Brothers Wrestling Academy. I'm just telling you, I got my hand up because I would be all over that. You guys are awesome. What does your day look like now that you don't have to worry about, keeping a course load? What does your day look like?
It's it's a lot more freedom. I think a lot more responsibility on myself to make sure I'm getting the things in that I need. Um, I mostly practice with the team during the morning right now, or I get somebody and do separate RTC practice with Jamil or one of the or Zach if they're in there. But it all my day mostly revolves around my workout schedule, right? Around my practice, my lift, my cardio. But the beauty of living the RTC life is like I get to come home. I get a lot of free time. You know, I have a ton of free time and what I choose to do with that free time, I think has been really important. You know, it'd be easy, I think, to kind of just like sit on the couch and wait for the next workout. But I think I'm watching a lot more film now. Like I'm studying the sport a lot more, watching a lot of my old matches, watching a lot of other matches, and just trying to continue to grow as much as I can and soak up as much knowledge of the sport as I can so that when I get to my next practice it's like I have some clear things that I wouldn't work on top of the things that I'm already working on, and I think it serves as good motivation to get through some of the workouts that I don't necessarily always want to do. So I think it's a lot of wrestling all the time, you know, whether it's me meeting with a guy in the team and kind of just being a mentor. I feel like that helps me a lot too. Or meeting with the coaches and watching wrestling, or whether I'm in the practice room, everything kind of revolves around my training right now.
You, who are you watching more than anyone aside from your own matches?
A lot of Colette probably. He's probably my favorite guy to
Really?
watch. Harry Brands a lot Brands brothers. Um, Yazdani a lot. A lot of
Mhm.
Sidakov. Some of the guys that have been wrestling really well recently, but then some of our legendary American guys.
Yeah. Yazdani has a very similar style to you. I, I remember Ian coming up to me uh, at at a journeyman event that I was calling the matches, and he was like, "Stop telling everybody that Trent's gonna hit an underhook." I'm like, "I'm pretty sure they know. I'm pretty sure that they have a good idea that that underhook is coming." Um, what are you deriving from watching Yazdani? Because his positioning on that underhook is pretty stellar.
Yeah. Honestly, it's pretty much everything but what he's doing with the underhook. Like
Really?
what does the pace look like? What is he doing to get to the underhook in new ways? Because like when you're wrestling these best guys, yes, they know you're punching an underhook. How can I get there without them knowing it? How can I get there in a different way that they're not ready for? Because when I get there, I know I'm going to score, right? So if I get to my
Yeah.
position, I know I'm scoring, right? How do I get there against a guy
Mhm.
that's not going to let me to my position? So that's kind of just watching the way that different guys have kind of opened up their styles a little bit to adjust for a guy shutting down the number one. Like, what are you going to do out there when you can't? What am I going to do when I can't get to my underhook? I got to do something, right? I can't just bank
Right.
on that. Trying to get to it in different ways, and I think that's where I've been learning a lot, and it's been helping my wrestling a lot because I'm just getting into different positions, getting into different situations, and having to figure it out from there.
Yeah. So, you know what's interesting to me? I have I help out with powerlifting, okay? And there's younger athletes, and when I say younger, I mean like freshmen, sophomores that come up to me and they'll ask me, and this sounds like almost like kind of silly, like it almost sounds like, but they're like, "How do you watch film?" And I know like not in the literal sense, like yeah, you just look at it on your phone, stupid. They're like, "Well, what do you look for? What do you how do you do it?" And I never thought about it until this kid named Timmy, great kid, one of my favorites on team, not the greatest wrestler in the world, but he's like, Coach, I just do I just cheer for them? Like I don't know, like you know. And I thought that was a really interesting point. A lot of these kids don't know what to look for when they're watching wrestling. Maybe they don't have the focus that I had when I was younger. But how would you answer that question? If Timmy came up to you and said, "How do I do it?" What would you say to him?
Yeah. I think, one thing I love doing when I watch film now is not even necessarily the technical aspect of it, but it's like, okay, I watch this guy come out in the mat. What does I try to put myself like in the shoes of, I know this person. What's his process look like when he's stepping onto the mat? And you can see, the all-time greats, the guys that do really well, there's an it factor about them, like their confidence, maybe it's their swagger, but like when they step on the mat, they know exactly what they want to do. They know exactly what they want to get to, and usually you can tell in the first minute of the match, what they're trying to do. And the other thing I really like to pick up on is everything comes, and this is so funny, like when you're a kid, like you get so sick of your coaches telling you about doing the basics and the fundamentals. Like if you watch a match of Tom or Terry Brands, like and it's 6 minutes of action, you notice how good they are at the fundamental skills of wrestling. Down block, reattack, snap, chase corner, sprawling, stuffing the head. Like those little details are what wins at this level. And it's like I'm trying to kind of relearn, reteach myself in a way of what the first 5 years of wrestling stuff I learned. Like head position, stance discipline, not reaching, guy gets my legs, stuff head, sprawl off, get off of it. And I think that's the coolest part about film is you go back and you watch all these guys that are really good. They're really good in the positions, but they all do the fundamentals extremely well. So I think that's one thing I like to look for is how are people carrying themselves? What does their confidence look like? How do they respond after getting taken down? How do they respond after maybe getting screwed by the ref? How do they respond coming out of a first period if they're down or they're winning? And then this to focus on the basics and the fundamental skills.
Who has the best fundamental skills in this country?
Probably right now.
Yeah. Let's talk about and the only reason I bring it up is because you did mention the Open, and like if I talk to Timmy, right? We're just talking about this kid Timmy for now, so whatever. Let's just continue to talk about him. If I say to him, you got to watch the U.S. Open, and you got to watch because of their fundamental skills of the sport, who am I watching?
Uh, Man, as much as it probably kills me to say, probably Brooks, who's beaten me the past couple of years. I think like
Mhm.
in terms of wrestling somebody like that and feeling it, it's like there's no easy points, right? You're not going to get an easy point. And it's because he does the basics well, right? He does the fundamentals extremely well and he knows what positions you want to get to. But I think everybody does it maybe in different styles. Like everyone's got such a different style that you can tell, they're really good when they get to positions. But if you really break it down, all of those top guys are pretty much doing a variation of the basics extremely well. And they always have that
Sure.
fundamental. But I don't know. I think Spencer Lee does an incredible job. Vito, incredible. Just in terms of not getting out of position. Like Marcus Blaze, head position and stance discipline is extremely good. I think just like a handful
Mhm.
of those guys, I think do all those things really well.
I agree, and I think that that is one of the biggest reasons. Like if I had a pie chart of reasons why USA, United States wrestling has really excelled over the last, I don't know, let's call it 15 years. Okay. A big part of that would be fundamental superiority. And you said stance discipline, and I love that term. I think that's a big part of it. Now you can also talk about the another big part, which is RTCs, and you could also say, whatever. But a lot of that stance discipline, those fundamental disciplines in our sport, well, they didn't really exist as much when I was a kid because we didn't have ENSLs across the country
Mhm.
preaching those fundamentals of the sport. Do you see that as a major factor in the way that our adults are wrestling?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's huge, and I think these kids have more access to be able to wrestle with college guys now. And you learn that pretty quickly when you step into the room. Like, I'm not going to finish a shot if I'm out of position. I'm not going to defend a shot if I'm out of position. So I think kids are learning that very quickly. And for me, like, yes, I was preached those things at a very young age, and in my stubbornness, probably didn't listen to it until I get to college. I'm like,
Mhm.
shit, that guy was saying the right stuff. Imagine if I would have bought into this.
Well, Ian knew what he was talking about. Who
Oh, it's
knew?
yeah. But I think every kid probably goes through that. But yeah, no, it all stems back to that. I think, like Kyle Snyder too, like the guy's just never out
Oh,
of like do you know how
never.
hard it is to beat someone that never breaks position? And that's kind of how I'm trying to shape my style a little bit. Like Coach Jameel and I and Jackson Arrington and Ryan Jack, they're redshirting this year, so they kind of have been in a group with me. Like we work stance discipline every day in the room. Every day it's stance discipline and head position. And it's like, wow, I probably a coach probably told that to me when I was 8 years old, and here I am
Mhm.
at 25 at the highest level. I'm doing the same stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. And I'm dealing with it right now with my son. So I'll give you an example. He's grown up on a wrestling mat. I did not let him compete at all until he was like 12, but he grew up on a wrestling mat. His position sucks. Plain it's terrible. Like his stance position is not good. And so I never rammed this stuff down his throat. I just look, you want to do your thing, man. Like he always wanted to be like elbow passy and Asgaroff slide bys and all this. Okay, that's fine. So up until recently, if he grabbed me on like a Sunday and he wanted to go roll around, it would just be that. It would just be, hey, watch this cool thing, or how do I do that cool thing that this guy did? The other day, he came up to me, and first of all, I was beat to shit. Like he, like I don't like a lot of people that don't coach don't know like. Yeah, I didn't feel like working out at all. Like there was no part of me that wanted to get off the couch. I was sitting there, I was about to watch football, and he comes up to me and he's like, "Let's go get a workout in." I'm like, "Okay, super, can't wait." And then as we're getting onto the mat, he's like, "I need work on down block reattack. I need to work. I need," and I'm like, "Oh shit, here we go, here we go!" Like I was so stoked because, well, first of all, I was pissed because like I gotta shoot. You're gonna make me shoot right now, dude. Like I ain't feeling that right now. But I was stoked because he 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 knew fundamentally that he needs to get better. So here's my question to you. Aside from the getting your butt kicked in the room, was there anything else that made you excited to get back to the fundamentals of the sport?
Yeah, losing. I think every time I've
That'll
taken a
do
loss,
it.
every time I've taken a loss, you rewatch the matches. Like, yeah, I reached with my same leg, same hand. Like, yeah, you're gonna get beat against guys that know what they're doing if you do that. So, when you come into the room, you work head position, down block, reattack until you can't, you can't take the guys. You can't take it anymore, and then you come back the next day and you do it again until you figure it out. Um, so I think losing is a huge thing. Like and maybe not losing a say, but just competing. Like when you're competing, actually compete and give yourself a chance to wrestle, to learn. Because I think what I see a lot now, and I did this the first couple years of my college career just because it's just how I competed, but it's like, you kind of play out the first period, you maybe get an escape, you might make a mistake, and then you're down 3-2 with 30 seconds left, and all of a sudden here comes this sudden burst of energy where I'm going to throw a million shots at you. Well, you walk off the mat and just like shit, I didn't even give myself a chance to win. I waited so long and then I do this free for all. It's like that's not how I want to compete, and you don't learn like that. You learn by starting the match when the whistle blows and you get to your positions and you attack. And if you make a mistake in the first 30 seconds, you get an escape and you're back up and you got the rest of the 6 minutes to work. And I think that's a big thing that I think helped me find the areas that I needed to improve, and a lot of them were fundamentals. Is just competing really hard and taking some chances and learning through some losses.
You know, man, this is a tricky subject. You're saying that you learn through competition.
Mhm.
I
Learn
agree with you.
learn lessons through competition, and then drill and spar for about 1 million hours in the room to try to figure it out.
For
It's like
sure. But what I'm saying is that the tricky part of it is how how much should these kids be competing, right? Because how many guys that you came up with in Central PA that were all world ass kickers when they were eighth grade.
a lot,
You
a
don't even
lot.
know. I know a lot. I could rattle off five from your club. Okay, I
Right.
can rattle off five from Bison. But so what is there a number? Is there obviously it matter? It depends person to person. But is there a guideline? Is there a blueprint? Like
No,
how many matches should these kids be getting in?
I think you answered it. It varies from person to person. The same things that I put myself through probably would have burned somebody else out. It's just I think it literally just depends on how the person is. It's like you can't, I don't know if there necessarily is a specific guideline or a specific number of matches that reduces the burnout. I think it literally comes down to how much the kid cares about it and how passionate he is. Like for me, when I was in sixth and seventh grade, like I wanted to quit so bad. Like I went through this transition where like I wanted to be done with wrestling so bad. I couldn't stand it. I think a lot of it kind of stemmed from maybe being a little jealous of like Hayden's success because he was all in kind of like in the seventh, eighth grade. And I just couldn't stand it. I hate going to practice. I wanted to play baseball, football. I think I thought I was like a D1 baseball player and I really wasn't. And some of that was like immaturity, but like I figured it out, and and it was eighth grade. I remember Hayden had a huge impact. Like he sent me a text, and from there I was locked in forever. But like it took me making that decision for myself to be all in. Like if someone would have kept forcing me to go, I probably wouldn't have done it. But like I bought in at a certain time, and from that time I was all in, and that's just who I was. And it's like I don't know how you set a guideline or a blueprint for that. I think some kids just have it, and some kids really, really want to be good, and they'll do whatever they can to figure it out.
What did the text say?
It's funny. They actually just had so in the middle is like beginning January. There's a Belfont. It's like a Belfont junior high tournament. It's a pretty tough tournament, and like I was in eighth grade, and I was kind like I was always good. Like I was always strong. I always placed at like the youth state tournament. I never won it. And it was eighth grade and I won this tournament. I kind of skated by in the finals, but like it was a pretty big win. And I remember him texting me something along the lines of I used to have it saved on my phone and I lost it, but it was along the lines of like, listen, man, I think that you can be really, really good at this sport if you dedicate yourself to it. If you don't want to wrestle in college, you don't have to do that. But if you win a PA state title, nobody can ever take that away from you. And if you dedicate yourself to it, we'll be the best two brothers that ever come out of the state. And like that night, like I get chills talking about it right now. But I remember I was at my friend's house and I read that and I was like, I got to go to practice tomorrow. Like I got to train. I got to hold my end of this bargain up. And from that point forward, like I was so bought in. End of eighth grade summer, did all of the summer training with him, and I was just bought in, man. I wanted to hold up my end of being a being one of the good brothers with him.
Yeah, that's a pretty awesome
I'm
story.
sweating right now, and maybe I need to go.
Yeah, let's go. Let's get a warm up in. Let's get a warm up in.
I wrestled matches this morning. I'm like ready to go again, because I
Let's
still
go. I love it. Dude, but here's the thing though. I think every one of us has that pivotal text, that pivotal. I was old enough to get stone tablets sent to me. Um, but I guess what I'm trying to say is those those messages from people that you look up to or people that believed in you, I think every one of us has that. And I think the scary thing to me is that I don't know that the opportunities to continue will be the same. And that scares me a little bit. So I guess what I'm trying to say is whatever happens after you're done competing, how do you see yourself giving back and creating that spark in someone else?
Um, I think that's it. You've got to chase that feeling of helping somebody out, like my brother helped me out. And I don't know what that avenue is, but I know it'll be there for me. Like we said, wrestling's not going to go away, whether it's at the youth, high school, college, freestyle level. I have I have so much, I think I don't know how to word this. I think what will help me help somebody is the amount of pain I've taken from this sport. And I think every good coach probably has that a little bit. And it's like, if you would have told me 6 years ago that I didn't win an NCAA title, I would be like, am I still living? Is life still going on? And
Yeah.
here it is, I'm still breathing, but those things don't just go away. And there's there's a lot of pain that I've taken from this sport, and it's like how can I use that in a way to make somebody else go through the process knowing that they're going to feel the same things, but understanding that there's a whole new life on the other side of going all in and being vulnerable on your goals. So I think that's kind of when I think of what'll make me valuable as a coach, it's like using the experiences of getting so close and not getting it. But I still have a lot of my career left, so I can't close a nail on it yet.
Sure.
But like the NCAA title, I grew up thinking that was, the holy grail. And, in a lot of ways it still kind of is to me because I was so close so many times to getting it and you don't get it. And it changes you a little bit. I think I'm at a healthy point with it, but there's still so much I think about that has to be used for another avenue because it's not me losing sleep over it every night isn't really going to help me anymore because I don't have another shot at it. But I do have another shot at the US Open. I do have another chance to make a world team. And I do have chances to use those experiences to help other people accomplish their goals.
Mm. All right. Before we get to our sprint, would you take back your loss in the finals to AB, or would you take back Hayden's loss to Nolf in the semis?
Uh, Hayden's for sure. Actually, the loss I think I would take back from Hayden was, well, everyone, right? There's nothing,
Yeah, yeah.
there really is nothing harder than watching your brother lose at the national tournament. Like it's really hard to lose at the national tournament. There's nothing that rips your heart out more than seeing your brother lose. Um, the hardest one for me to watch, I think, was 2021 when he lost a car in the semis. Like I'm trying to distance myself from it and I couldn't get over it. Like I couldn't get my emotions out of watching it. Um and like I went in the rest of the semis and somehow I won. I don't remember a second of the match. Like I don't even remember anything. I couldn't do anything. Because I was so emotionally beaten down from that. But the North match as well was hard, and even the match in the finals, like it's just really hard as a brother. But I would take my career and him getting one of those any day of the week for sure.
All right, let's bring it on home, brother. Best wrestling shoe of all time.
Um, oh God, you know what's crazy? Let me add. I know we're probably going long, but I was talking about like
That's okay.
me checked out in sixth and seventh grade, and I was kind of big into like the shoe market and stuff, and I always wanted to have all these
Sure.
cool. And I remember my parents be like, "No, we're not doing that." So I was just kind of like, I always, I
No,
always,
that's not really a thing here.
I always,
Sorry.
I always wanted really cool shoes, but I never like quite got them. I don't know. I always say that the day I stopped really caring about wrestling shoes was the day I started getting better at wrestling. But right now, I think the Colette OGs are probably the best. But my favorite are probably the white Adidas Combat Threes. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I had like three pair of those. I don't know where they went, but because they made a white pair and they made a black pair,
Had I have
and I
I have a pair
had.
of black ones. I want a
Do
white
you
pair.
really?
Yeah.
I might be able to help you out with that. What size are you?
10 or 10 and a half.
Yeah, I could maybe could help you out with that. All right. We'll figure that out. Next question. You only get four. They got to be American. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Yeah, this question's brutal. I've actually been thinking about this all day. Like
I
I'm actually
love
gonna
this.
I'm gonna hijack it too. I'm gonna give you two answers. So I think the only answer right now that probably makes the most sense is probably um Gable, John Smith, Burrows, and Kale. Maybe Bruce Baumgartner, but I think those four are probably it. But I'm gonna hijack it and give you my four
Okay.
favorite uh
Okay.
Harry Brands, Kerry Colette, Hayden Hidlay, and Sammy Sasso.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me why Sasso. I'm not taking anything away from him. I just want to hear the rationale behind it.
Sammy's just always been one of my best friends. Like growing up in PA, like watching his career, I always thought like I always would tell him like there was never a match where he would walk out there where I'd be like I'm gonna bet against him because he's just so good at certain situations and he was good in his positions. And he just has that he's got the vibe to him where he's just such a cool dude, you know. And we've
Absolutely.
been and I've been a great friend with Sammy for so long, and like the things that he's gone through recently, just to be back on the mat, like I don't think people really appreciated as enough what he's doing this year. Like it's absolutely insane that he's able to take the mat and still compete. It's just he'll always be one of my favorites. But yeah, Sammy,
You
Hayden.
know what's funny? I want to stick on Sammy for just a second. I just want because he's one of my favorites as well. Like the dude. I I didn't know this guy from Adam, right? And he still comes up to me, big hug, and he's taken a couple of head scratcher losses this year. And you're right. I don't think that people understand what he had to do just to get to be on the mat in this college season. But I also think what's funny is I would not count him out in March. I would not count him out in March. And I say that and people think like I might have a little bit of insider knowledge about what is going on. I don't, but I do know Sammy Sasso is a bad dude. Okay? I do know Sammy Sasso wrestles his best when the lights are the brightest. And I also know that his coach, Jay Jaggers, was counted out a million times and
Mhm.
still wound up with two NCAA titles.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
So
if you take a shot to Sammy's leg, there's a chance you could get pinned. So you just never know, man.
100%.
Competitive.
100%. I love watching that kid compete. He's amazing. All right. Here we go. What are you reading right now that you think everyone else what do you think right now should be required reading for everyone listening to this podcast?
Ooh, man. Oh, geez. I don't know. I think Chop Wood Carry Water is a great book. That's kind of the cliche answer. The book The Originals by Adam Grant is really good. I think that kind of helped spark a little bit of new life in me in terms of being really comfortable being who you are and the value of authenticity and being vulnerable. I think that's huge. So that's a great book. And then I read For Whom the Bell Tolls a couple of months ago. I think it's a classic. You can't go wrong with that. By
Love it. All
Ernest
right,
Hemingway.
brother. Love it. All right. You get a magic wand. You can change one thing about the sport of wrestling. What would it be? Change us tomorrow.
How much time we got? We got 3 more hours to talk about it.
You're good, brother. I'm good. I'm good. I'm not booked for the next
Um,
hour.
I think I think maybe college wrestling to be freestyle. I think switch over to freestyle.
Yeah. We're going
And
in that
maybe
direction
that
anyway.
yeah, maybe it's just selfish of me because I feel like I'm better at at freestyle than I am folk style, but I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of things that would maybe just make it easier in the long run for it to go smoothly. But I just love the push out so much. Like I score more push outs maybe than anybody in the in the country. So it's like if I would have had that in college, I probably would have maybe won a national title, but I don't know. Maybe that's
Yeah,
just
I agree.
the style that I like.
Dude, all right. I love your authenticity. I love your honesty. Um, and I can't thank you enough for jumping on this podcast and sharing a little bit of it with us.
Yeah, no, it means a lot to me. I appreciate what you guys are doing. And yeah, I'll be tuning in on the episodes. I got my flight to Croatia is tomorrow, so I'm gonna download a bunch and go through it. I just finished up the Brandon Paulson one. He's such a beast, man. It's such
Dude, he's a spark plug, bro. You want to talk about getting chills? I get chills every time I speak to that dude. But yeah, it's a good episode. If you're in Zagreb, check out the Tesla Museum. It's actually a pretty cool time.
yeah, my mom and my girlfriend are flying out as well. I had an exchange student when I was a kid that is from Croatia, and she still lives there, and is married with 2 kids. So my mom has visited a couple times. So we'll have a little bit of an in with the locals. So that'll be fun.
Nice, dude. Yeah, the food is pretty darn good too. So you're in for a treat. Zagreb's a cool town. Trent Hidlay, thank you, my brother. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, guys.
Wait. Don't go anywhere before you hit that next button. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, do us a huge favor. Click that subscribe button. And if you're so inclined, leave a review and share it.